I joined in the summer of 2001 from Ohio, and actually reported to Fort Benning, Georgia. My original MOS was 11 Bravo Infantryman. I reported to Fort Benning on September 7th, 2001. So without stating the obvious, 4 days later, our country was kind of flipped upside down. I went from being in a peacetime army to being in a obviously wartime army. Preparing to go to training as an 11 Bravo, we kind of saw the writing on the wall. Granted, we'd only been in the Army for 4 days, so it was kind of a unique situation to be in. Anybody that's in the Army can tell you that, in the reception process, there's a lot of rumors that fly around about what's going on, and that day was no different. We heard all the rumors about what happened in New York and Washington, and we just thought it was silly rumor. Somebody came up with something and started spreading it, and then sure enough, lunchtime, our drill sergeants brought us in and told us what had happened. And it was kind of it was obviously a somber moment, but you could hear a pin drop. We were outside, so it was definitely the silence was deafening. Sitting outside in a formation of hundreds of new soldiers, and hearing the news about what had happened on September 11th, 2001. At that point, I think we realized that things were going to change. And as we got into our training, our drill sergeants regularly reminded us we're now in a time of war. And as it would be, I graduated, came to Fort Bragg, to the 82nd Airborne Division, and in 2003, our battalion pushed out to Afghanistan. We spent about 8 months there. And so, we got our taste of what that looked like after training. I'll say that experience definitely taught me what right looked like in the Army. I had a lot of really good leaders that had prior combat experience. So I think we were well prepared, and I feel like the lessons learned that I got from that time in my career have translated to where I'm at today. Because as it would be, we would find ourselves about a year later. At that point, Iraq had already kicked off, and our battalion would get called up to go in 2004 to spend some time in Iraq. So after we returned home, I spent a brief bit on recruiting duty, and then I had a choice to make whether I wanted to stay in the Army or get out. A lot of my peers, a lot of my friends were still at war. I would see their stories, we would talk, I would hear about what had happened, whether it was back in Afghanistan or Iraq, and I knew I wanted to come back, but I wanted to do something different. And in my search for a different career direction, within the Army, I found psychological operations, and I knew I wanted to do something that was going to make a bigger impact and have a larger impact on the Army at large and what we were doing, and I felt that psychological operations was the place to be. And so in 2007, that's where I ended up. Given that we were still in persistent conflict with the global war on terror, right out of the schoolhouse in 2008, my team was in Afghanistan again. So I kind of had a unique perspective of having seen 2003 what Afghanistan looked like, but then 5 years later being back in there, kind of the differences, but now with a different mindset, working within special operations, working with special forces ODAs, my peers within the psychological operations realm. It really showcased a different way to fight war. We were focused on the psychological realm, but also partnering it with the Special Forces ODA's actions in the AO we were working in. A lot of lessons learned. Took a lot away from that deployment because it was my first deployment within PSYOP. And so, moving forward, we're still in conflict. Up until recent time, I had the opportunity to go and be a planner, a PSYOP planner, within the 101st Airborne Division, and then go back to Afghanistan again. So I've got multiple rotations, and this you'll hear this as I continue. But in 2010, I went back, and again, I did it in a different perspective, with about a year and a half gap. And so I got to see the kind of the evolution of the country, the evolution of our operations, what was working, what wasn't working. We finished a year there. It was a rough deployment for the brigade I was with. Again, for me, it was a different perspective, working as a planner, doing operational type planning for our guys on the ground. But again, I learned a lot. I think the things that I've picked up on each deployment throughout my career has built and benefited me at some point, whether it was good, bad, or indifferent, to get me where I am today. So we finished that deployment. I came back to Fort Bragg, and then after some time as an instructor at the Special Warfare Center in school for the Psychological Operations Qualification course, I found myself back in our tactical battalion as a detachment sergeant, and in 9th Battalion, we're known for being the kind of the tip of the spear with tactical PSYOP and persistently being engaged within some theater of operation. Our company, the company that I'm currently a first sergeant of, has been, up until approximately about a month and a half ago, persistently engaged in Afghanistan since October of 2001. And so, for me, having been in this company multiple times, now being the first sergeant and being charged with being the advisor and trainer, seeing what's going on within that company is I have a bit of pride, because I know we've been there. A lot of our guys have got the lessons learned, and they're continuing to share that with the greater audience at large within the PSYOP regiment. But to go back to my time as a detachment sergeant, we were tagged to go back to Afghanistan again, and this was in 2018. So over the span of my career, I've seen Afghanistan evolve in various fashions. I've seen our warfare evolve in various fashions. And so to see kind of things wind down, for me, especially now that I have soldiers that have since come out of the country, this is the first time in almost 20 years that our company has not had a soldier in Afghanistan supporting global war on terror. It's a little bit bittersweet, because that's what my career has been. It's what I've seen. It's what's made me the leader that I am today. And so I think that's the best way to frame it, is it's bittersweet. The only thing I can, I guess, expect to give is the same thing that I received when I joined. The leaders that I had were the Panama Desert Storm era, even some of the Somalia era veterans that were sharing their lessons learned with me. I can only hope to give that to the soldiers that come behind me, because we don't know what's next, and the country as it is now, the global war on terror as we know it is coming to some sort of an end.